Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by author Duncan Bhaskaran. He's going to be talking to you about how he quit alcohol and how he can show you how to get your energy up and live the life that you want. So, Duncan, thank you so much for joining me today.
It is my absolute pleasure to be here.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Duncan Bhaskaran Brown. I live just outside Oxford with one beautiful wife, one amazing looking daughter, and a very, very average bonsai tree. And like you alluded to in your introduction, what I spend most of my day doing is not really helping people to stop drinking. What I spend my time doing is helping them to start living.
Okay, so why do you feel what you're doing is so important and so needed in today's society?
So, I mean, my own experience with alcohol is not really uh, particularly pretty. You know, it took me to a lot of places where I didn't really want to go, made me the kind of person that I didn't really want to be. And then when I stopped drinking, the change was it was huge. I mean, it was night and day. The amount of energy and concentration and focus and peace and joy that I got when I stopped drinking, it was amazing. And part of me sort of thinks I'd be a bit of an idiot if I tried to keep that all to myself. I gotta share that with people. And unfortunately, problems with alcohol are ludicrously common.
Well, I know you were drinking, smoking, and also eating a lot of junk food, and you stopped all that. So, kind of tell us about that.
Yeah, so I suppose I should stress I didn't do that all at the same time. For my journey was this kind of period, about 4 years. I started off by stopping smoking, and then I stopped drinking, and then finally I sorted out my diet. So I think that's something that's really important to stress to people. We kind of think that when you stop doing something, it's this one moment in time. But actually, if you look at a car, stopping a car is not actually a single moment, is it? Yeah, I mean, yes, there's the single moment where it comes completely to rest, but actually there's a lot before that, isn't there? There's anticipating that you need to stop, noticing that you need to do something, and then applying your foot to the brake, and then gently slowing down, and then reaching that point that you actually stopped. And I think that's something that we often miss in modern life, is that actually it's a process, and it takes time, and it happens over the course of years. And to an extent, my story is about stopping drinking, but actually stopping smoking and sorting my diet out were very much a part of that journey.
Well, what do you feel like businesses can do to stop alcohol from draining their employee production?
So I think there's obviously this huge connection between business and alcohol. So much of the way things are celebrated, the way events are run, the way people are rewarded, so much of it is tied up with alcohol, and that's not really surprising. I mean, we live in a society where the vast majority of people drink, so of course it's going to kind of bleed over into the business world. But I think a lot of people, they're not really aware of the impact that alcohol can have, even at relatively low levels. So you think two drinks, I think two drinks, that's nothing, Duncan. That's not going to cause any problems, is it? But actually, two drinks is enough to reduce the quality of your sleep by about 24%. And that's the quality of your deep sleep, your REM sleep, where you process the information of the day, lay down information. You kind of deal with the emotions of the day. So you're 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 really reducing your ability to recharge from the day. But then again, those two drinks will also increase your cortisol levels by around 18%. And that, I mean, I'm sure your listeners know that cortisol is the stress hormone. And that I think is one of the real ironies of alcohol, that a lot of people think, oh, I drink because it helps me deal with stress. And if that was, of course, true, it would reduce your cortisol levels, not increase them. So even drinking at that kind of moderate level, it is having an effect on people. So I think the first thing that companies need to do is realize that actually, it does have an effect, and it has a fairly immediate effect. And if you don't sleep so well and you're more stressed, you aren't going to be working as well. Your concentration is going to be off, your energy is going to be low, you're going to be distracted. So alcohol does have this effect on people's productivity. And I think becoming aware of that and then starting to, open a conversation about how we can do things differently, how we can, run events and reward people and celebrate in a slightly different way, but also how companies can actually support their staff to drink less, because most people who drink actually do want to drink less. Some research recently put the figure at 72%. 72% of drinkers want to drink less. And companies have got a great opportunity to help people do that.
So, what group does the World Health Organization recommend should be checked annually for alcohol use?
So the World Health Organization convened a panel of experts a little while ago, and they looked at a lot of different risk factors that make you more likely to develop a problem with alcohol. And then they identified certain high risk groups. And I think that's one of the most surprising things, is that actually they identified business executives as one of the high risk groups. And a lot of people, when I tell them that, they sort of think I'm being a bit silly. But actually, all of the risk factors are there. Yeah, stress and alcohol are very much tied up in our society. There is this prevailing illusion of truth around alcohol helping you to deal with stress. And of course, the higher up in business you get, the more stress you tend to be subject to. But also there's this correlation between high performers and high earners and drinking. I think a lot of people, their image of somebody who has a problem with drinking is, of course, somebody who doesn't have a home and doesn't have a job and doesn't have a driving license. But that really isn't the case. 80% of the people that have a problem with drinking have a job as well, and many of them are actually quite successful. So the more affluent you are, the more you tend to drink. So the higher up you get in an organization, the more likely it is that the people are going to be drinking. So something like, I think it was 96% of the highest earning people in the United States drink. And compared to the general population, which is more like about 80% of the population. So there's a lot more drinking going on. And actually, a very revealing statistic that effectively on any given day, 40% of your high earning graduates are likely to have drunk last night, which is pretty much half of them, isn't it? So any day that you go into work, there's a 50-50 chance that anybody who's high up in your organization will have had a drink. And that is absolutely going to have an effect. So for me, it makes perfect sense that the World Health Organization recommends that business executives are screened annually for their alcohol use.
So, you became obsessed with the portrayal of alcohol on streaming services such as Netflix. Tell us about that and why you became obsessed with that.
I think the thing is, I always had these ideas about drinking, and drinking makes you tough. That was definitely a part of my life when I was growing up. I also believed that drinking made you very creative, and when I stopped drinking, part of the process of getting free of it was removing these kind of false beliefs, questioning them, asking, are they true? But, looking at them at a deeper level as well and saying, like, honestly, is that belief serving me? Is it helping me become the person that I want to be? And once I'd got through doing all of that, I started to wonder where these beliefs had come from. So I started looking into it. And actually, if you sort of like, if you really watch the TV um, with an open mind, you will start to see a lot of alcohol. So it kind of all reached a point when um, there was an article published in the British Medical Journal about smoking on Netflix. And what they found was that 74% of shows on Netflix depict smoking, which is a very, very high percentage. And I do a lot of work with smokers as well. So I talk a lot about some of the shows on Netflix when I'm working with people. And one of them was Bridgerton. And in the after the first series in Bridgerton came out and before the second series came out, this report hit the BMJ, and I think that affected the amount of smoking that was in the second series of Bridgerton. I mean, there still is. In fact, they've just launched the third series, and there still is smoking in Bridgerton, but there's less of it than there was in the first series, and that kind of made me think a little bit. But what I also noticed was there seemed to be more drinking, so I scratched my head for a little bit and thought, well, let's test it. Let's do an interval coding study and find out how much drinking there is on Netflix. So we picked 37 Netflix original shows branded 15 and 18. And we studied them. This is my idea of science, by the way, watching TV. And what we found was that 76.5%, oh no, sorry, 86.5% of them had alcohol in them. And that kind of staggered me a little bit because it's actually higher than the amount of smoking. And I thought there was a lot of smoking. But what really surprised me was where in the shows that the drinking was depicted. It averaged out to almost exactly 10 minutes, which how your listeners are now going, wow, 10 minutes, Duncan, that makes so much sense. But actually, if you look at product placement, if you look at the theory behind, putting products into dramas to promote them, the thing is, they always talk about 10 minutes in being the sweet spot, because actually, that sort of makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? You've got into the drama enough that you've almost drifted into that made up world, but you're not so wrapped up in it that you won't notice it. So in terms of product placement, 10 minutes is absolutely the sweet spot, which is incidentally where typically Netflix will put the consumption of alcohol. So, that really is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I could honestly talk for about 45 minutes about the portrayal of alcohol in the media. There's so much of it, but I think it helps people to know that we are being influenced even when we don't think we're being influenced. We are being sold these messages about alcohol and toughness, alcohol and sophistication, alcohol and power. And the very good news is it is a little bit like that pill in the Matrix, isn't it? Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So if you start watching with a little bit more awareness, you catch it pretty quickly and you become a lot less vulnerable to it.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
So you say that stopping drinking is the one area of life that isn't dominated by men. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, so drinking is very definitely dominated by men. So the World Health Organization found that basically 75% of the alcohol worldwide is consumed by men. So if you go into a bar, 3 out of every 4 drinks are going to be drunk by men. And you know, that means it's not really that surprising that men end up with more problems around drinking. So uh, you are about 2 to 3 times more likely to develop a drinking problem if you're a man. So in the UK, if you are a white man, about 30% of white males in the UK develop a problem with drinking, which is basically 1 in 3. And nobody explained that to me. Nobody told me that the odds when I started drinking were 1 in 3 as to whether I would develop a problem with it. So it is, I mean, it's not exclusively a male problem, but it is very much a male problem. However, the people that are doing something about it tend to be women. There are a lot of really amazing women out there who are doing some fantastic things in the space. You know, they're doing a really good job of promoting sobriety or moderation, sober curiosity, 99% sober, all of that kind of stuff. They're doing really good work promoting that. But the men, well, not so much. So we got more of a problem, but we're doing less about it. So that's, I think, one of the really sad things that you know, men, we tend to get everywhere, but this is the one area where we really do need to be doing a lot more. So that's why I wrote my most recent book, Real Men Quit, because I wanted to write something that was specifically aimed at men, because there are a lot of great books about stopping drinking out there, but none of them tend to be really, you know, trying to meet men where they're at. You know, most of them don't have sports in it. Very few of them have James Bond. Most of them don't have Star Wars, and most of them don't have a whole heap of bad jokes. Because you know, blokes, we love a bad joke, don't we?
Yeah, go ahead and tell us about your book. Tell us where we can get it and what we can expect when we read it.
So it's called Real Men Quit, and if you just put "Real Men and Quit" into Amazon, then you know, you will absolutely find it. I didn't realize at the time that the title is composed of very simple, very short words. So even if maybe you've had a drink, you can still find it online. What can you expect from it? So it does couple of things. First off, it helps you get to grips with your beliefs around alcohol. So it will help you to examine, sort of identify them and bring them to light, and then examine them and say, you know, is it true? Does alcohol make me look sophisticated, or have I just watched James Bond one too many times? And then it will help you sort of work your way through the thought process, a little bit of, you could call it dealing with the cravings, but I prefer to think of cravings simply as thoughts. So it helps you work your way through the thoughts. And what I have found with people is if they get the beliefs right and they get the thoughts right, then the actions follow. However, most of the time, what we what we tend to do is we tend to focus on the behavior, and we hope the thoughts and the beliefs catch up, and they often don't. So, yeah, grab yourself a copy of Real Men Quit and do it the right way round, with jokes included.
So tell us, you like to do some Morris dancing. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so Morris dancing is a sort of traditional kind of English folk dancing. I suppose if you were to picture the sort of traditional British village scene, you know, thatched roof, little cottages, you know, sunny day with a big green in the middle of the village. That is exactly where you would find Morris dancers. And the way we dress is we wear white trousers, white shirts. There's lots of ribbons going on. There's lots of bells. We have hats with flowers in them, and then we wave hankies around, which, I mean, let's face it, that's kind of weird, isn't it? And we dance to traditional English folk music, and honestly, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not sure how much the audience enjoy it, but I definitely enjoy dancing. The thing is, it is a little bit associated with alcohol. So a lot of people that dance drink. And certainly when I started, I drank quite a lot. And when I stopped drinking, I was a little bit nervous as to whether I would enjoy myself quite as much, whether it would be the same. Actually, I was wondering whether I would be able to do it or not. And what I found, I went out with the guys a couple of times because I'd kind of already agreed to, and I didn't want to let them down. And I quite quickly realized that, do you know what? I quite enjoy dancing. I quite enjoy showing off. I quite enjoy the exercise. I quite enjoy the guys that I hang around with. I enjoy their friendship. I enjoy the sense of community. I like being a part of a tradition, something that is much bigger than myself. So there's all of these things about Morris dancing that I hadn't actually realized that was what I enjoyed about it. It was never really about the drinking. It was always about those things. And I think what I've found over the years working with so many people is that there's so much in life that we think it's about the alcohol, but actually it's about the people, it's about the place, it's about what you're doing, it's about the connection and the community far more than it is about the beer.
Tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about.
So at the moment we're working very hard to sort of help organizations and companies to become a bit more alcohol aware. So I think it is an area of business where there is, quite frankly, a lot of opportunity to make some money, not by selling alcohol, but by actually helping your employees to reduce the amount that they're drinking and to gain a better relationship with alcohol. So the kind of things that we work on is, that productivity piece that we talked about earlier, helping people to just perform better at work. But that also seeps into a lot of other areas. If you look at the effects that alcohol has on things like serotonin, it reduces empathy, which makes relationships a little bit harder. So actually it can kind of improve relationships, it can improve morale, it can improve engagement. So all of these things that businesses are very kind of focused on, it can really help with. But actually we've been doing more and more work in the kind of equality and diversity area, because it is a big part of inclusion. If you have a culture which has got a lot of drinking in it, you are excluding a lot of people. So there are very many reasons to why people never drink alcohol. Probably the one that springs to mind for most people is religion. Everybody knows that people who follow the Islamic faith don't drink alcohol, but actually quite a lot of Christians don't drink alcohol. Many Hindus won't drink. Same with Buddhists. So there are a lot of different religious reasons. There are also really reasons that revolve around race. So people of East Asian origin might lack the enzyme that helps them to digest alcohol, so it gives them a real problem. Then you can get into all of the physical and mental health reasons why people stop drinking. You can look at the gendered issues. So a lot of women stop drinking when they're trying to conceive or when they're pregnant. Many women stop drinking around the menopause as well, because the effects of the menopause are massively exacerbated by drinking. And also, the burden of caring falls unequally upon women. And if you are caring for children or if you're caring for elderly parents, that's not always compatible with drinking a lot. So I think there's a lot of issues around diversity that alcohol has quite a profound impact on. And people aren't really talking about it. So I'm really excited about the work that we're doing to help kick off that conversation, to help companies become more alcohol aware and more profitable, but also happier, healthier places to work as well.
Throw out your website so people can keep up with everything that you're up to.
So I am really easy to find online if you can spell Bhaskaran Brown, but most people can't even pronounce it. So what I think is easiest for people to do is if they just put getover.uk into the internet, that will take you to a bit of my website. And as a bit of a gift for your listeners, on that page, they'll be able to download my last book, which is called Get Over Indulgence. They can grab a PDF copy of that or Kindle, or if they can stand listening to me for 3 hours and 45 minutes, they can download the audio track as well. And that's honestly, it's a very light-hearted book. It's just kind of a little bit of my journey. There's not a lot of educational learning in it. It is mostly just a funny and entertaining story. I mean, you might accidentally learn something, but I don't want to put you off by saying that. It's just a nice, pleasant little read. And as I say, you can get a free copy of that at getover.uk, and that is a bit of my website, so you can find out about all of the stuff that we do. You can find me on the socials there as well. I'm pretty busy on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you've got any questions, queries, or comments, please get in touch. I love talking about this stuff.
Okay, close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if that was something I forgot to touch on that you would like to talk about, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
There's one thing that I would love everybody to tattoo across their heart, and that is that you are enough. You don't need cigarettes, you don't need alcohol, you don't need junk food. There's so many things in life that you don't need, because you are enough. You have everything inside you that you need to live a happy, fulfilled, meaningful, enjoyable life. So yeah, never ever forget that you are enough.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are enough. Getover.uk. Please follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. Jump on your favorite podcast app, give us a review, give us a follow. If you have any guest or suggestion topics, Curtis Jackson 1978 at att.net is the place to send them. As always, thank you for listening. And Duncan, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.